Hey everyone, welcome to this episode live from Fincon here in Portland, Oregon. Today I'm talking with Paula Pant. She hosts a podcast called Afford Anything. It's a leading personal finance podcast in the States here with over 45 million downloads. Paula was a Knight Baycott Fellow in Business and Economic Journalism at Columbia University in 2022 and 2023. Her website attracts millions of people every year. She appeared in the Netflix documentary Get Smart with Money and also worked as a consulting producer. Her insights have been featured in major publications such as the New York Times, Washington Post, and Forbes. Paula has also spoken at high-profile events such as the World Domination Summit at Google. Paula has received several industry awards, including the Plutus Award for Podcast of the Year and the Lifetime Achievement Award, both before the age of 35. She's based in New York. She focuses on financial psychology, entrepreneurship, investing, lifestyle design, and decision-making through a financial lens. My name's Glen James, joined by Paula Pant, live at Fincon. You're listening to Money, Money, Money. Before we get into it, this show is general advice only, and I've got a license to provide that advice. Full details can be found in the show notes. I'm a former financial advisor. Now I do the Money, Money, Money podcast. If you're a regular here, we call it M3, and we do a podcast called Retire Right. I've got a book, The Quick Start Guide to Investing, is available wherever good books are sold. There's a link in the show notes if you want to turn up your investing to 11 or if you're just getting started. Let's get into it. Thank you so much for being here today. Paula Pant, welcome back to the Money, Money, Money show.
Thank you. Thank you so much for having me here. I'm so excited to be on.
Now, last time you were on the show, I think it was 2020, because I just moved to my garage after COVID. We were called My Millennial Money. It was online. Now we're back at Fincon in person.
In person. This is incredible.
It is.
Like just face to face in our chairs. I'm like all greens and yellows right now.
Well,
you know?
I think it's a good sign. Now, for those who are new to the show, we are recording live at Fincon in Portland. You may hear some people walking past. You may hear a little bit of background noise. You may hear us both saying hi to randoms who interrupt us. But Paula, Afford Anything, your podcast. How's it going? What have you been working on? I love your mantra, as in, I'm butchering it. Like, you can't have everything, but choose something and go and get it.
Right.
Like, what's the actual mantra of Afford Anything?
So you can afford anything, but not everything.
Yeah.
And for people who aren't familiar with it, so Afford Anything is a show where the premise is exactly that you can afford anything but not everything, which means that we're a show that's very uplifting. We don't like to tell you that you can't. In fact, we ask you to eliminate the words "I can't" from your vocabulary, because fundamentally everything is a choice. And some people are like, well, can you build a rocket and go to Mars? This is not an abdication of common sense.
Yeah.
Right? The rules of common sense still apply. But so much of the time we hold ourselves back. And so for people who are like, well, but can you have 12 Porsches? For the people who would say that, I say, why are you kind of deflecting the core message, which is that if there is something that you really dream about doing, maybe you want to spend a year living out of a backpack and traveling the globe, or heck, maybe you want to spend a year living out of luxury hotels and traveling the globe. Right? Maybe you want to spend a year doing that with your family, with your kids. Maybe you want to take your kids to Hong Kong and Malaysia and Singapore and to show them all of these places while they're still, young, like before they become teenagers and develop their own lives, right? Maybe that's your real dream. And you can do that, but you can't necessarily do that and spend money on this other thing and spend money. So the idea is that life is not an endless series of ands. And that in order to say yes to something, you necessarily have to say no to other things. And there are these trade-offs that we need to make, and that's what it requires to be intentional with your money.
Yeah. I talk about, the SMART goals. I call them SMART yo goals. So I've added the yo. yours, but order. So that's exactly right. You can get the new Ferrari if you wanted that, but you haven't got your house and you haven't got some big foundations in your life. Maybe do that first.
Right.
And then prioritize. But then, I don't know, I'm contradicting myself. If we're living a values-based budget or values-based life, if that's valuable to you, I don't know, I still think you're wrong if you want to get a Ferrari before you get your foundation set up. But it is that tension, isn't it? We can't have it all at once.
Right. You can have anything you want, but you can't have everything.
Yeah.
And you certainly can't have everything at the same time. And I think so many people, we're sold these scripts from broader society. Like broader society says, well, by the time you're 30, you need X, right? And depending on where you grew up, maybe that script is that by the time you're family, you should own a home and you feel like a failure if you don't. Or maybe it's by the time you're 30, you should just simply not be living with roommates anymore, right? And you feel like a failure if you still have roommates. But if you ignore the messages that broader society sends and says, you know what, let's take off of the table how old I am. That is irrelevant. There is no such thing as I need X by a certain age. That's all just a ridiculous construct. Let's remove those societal expectations and let's really narrow things down to what are my core values. Do I value free time? Do I value family? Do I value adventure and travel? Do I value, maybe you were the kid that really loved marine biology, and the idea of like getting a scuba diving certification and being able to go on dives, maybe that is the thing that would really light you up. That's great. And if that means that you live in a smaller apartment rather than a bigger apartment or flat, I guess you call it.
Yeah, we call them a flat.
Yes.
Paula has family in Australia, so she gets the vibe.
Maybe, so if that means that you live in a tiny flat instead of a bigger flat or an older flat, maybe a little bit of a rundown, not very impressive flat. But because you do that, it gives you the money to go scuba dive.
Yeah.
All right, if that is the thing that you value,
go for
then
it.
go for it.
Yeah. Now, I'm going to do a terrible segue here, but life, it is a negotiation.
I see where you're going with this.
Yeah. Talk to us about negotiation. You've been working on, I guess, the next iteration for your audience around negotiation.
Yes.
And I love negotiation. I tell people it's a sport for me. And I think at the time of recording this, I was thinking, what's a name for this episode? And I was up at 3 a.m. with jet lag last night. And you know how you have that idea? It's like, oh, that's a really good idea. I'll remember that. And then you wake up and you forget it.
Yeah.
So I wanted to call the episode like, what is a tool that we can have in our life that can have huge financial impact that doesn't cost us anything? And that tool could be the skills of negotiation. Because negotiation, people might freak out about it and think that it's business, but we negotiate a lot every day, don't we?
Yes, absolutely.
What would you say, to somebody who is hearing this and like, well, why do I care about negogiation?
So I'll back up by saying...
And that was a lot of garbage preamble to hand it over to you.
But thank you. Thank you for asking that. And thank you for the preamble, because the reality is a lot of us, it takes time to formulate our thoughts and our ideas around money, because money is not a topic that people typically talk about. Money is considered impolite discussion. And think about how ludicrous that is, that there is this object that you spend your entire life working for, that you revolve many of your major life decisions around, including decisions that are as consequential as how close you live to your parents and grandparents and siblings, right? Decisions that are as consequential as perhaps how many children you have, or if you have children at all, right? These decisions that impact the most core, fundamental, intimate parts of our lives. And, all of that gets influenced very much by money, and yet it's not considered polite conversation to talk about money. How strange is that?
Yeah.
So anyway, that's an aside to say, I totally understand why sometimes there is a preamble, why sometimes it takes a while to formulate ideas around this topic that is simultaneously so important and yet so under-discussed.
Yeah.
Now, with that said, negotiation. So I want to back away from I'll answer that in a moment, but before I do, I want to give a kind of foundational layer.
Yes.
Which is negotiation is an act. But before we get to the act, we first need to ask ourselves, all right, what is it that we're trying to achieve here? And in order to build wealth and to have a secure financial life, I think there are 5 pillars that a person should really tune into. And so those 5 pillars are financial psychology, which is your money mindset. You know, those are the hidden scripts that we have about money, the internalized childhood lessons and adulthood lessons that we learn about money, the cognitive biases that we have, everything around money mentality. So financial psychology is a foundational pillar. Increasing your income is the second pillar, and that is where negotiation is an act that plays into, that's the actionable, one of the many actionable parts of increasing your income. Increasing your income, of course, can mean learning a new skill, etc. But once you have that skill, right? Once you've learned how to weld or you've learned how to be an accountant, right? And you've entered into the career that you are going into, there is a wide range of what people at your level are getting paid. And if you want to get to the top of that range, you need to learn how to ask for it. So increasing your income is the second of 5 pillars. The third of the 5 is investing. And I think that everyone has a sense of what that is, so I won't elaborate on that. Yep. The fourth is real estate, and then the fifth is entrepreneurship. And so those 5 pillars, the acronym is FIRE, but with 2 I's. Yep. So I call it double I FIRE. And if you can really dial in on those 5 pillars, you will have a successful financial life.
Well, okay. That's cool, but the counter would be, well, I don't want to be an entrepreneur.
Oh, yes.
So do we pull as many of those levers as possible? Or see, I guess for me, I'm self-employed. Yeah. I'm the entrepreneur. So the income thing is explicitly linked to that.
No, not necessarily. So first of all, I think entrepreneurial thinking.
Right. Okay.
Yes.
Cool.
Entrepreneurial thinking is critical regardless of what you do for an income.
Yes.
Because there's actually a Wharton professor that I interviewed recently on my podcast, Afford Anything. Her name is Lori Rosenkopf, and she is the Vice Dean of Entrepreneurship for Wharton Business School.
Awesome.
And she has a framework where she details 7 different archetypes of entrepreneurs.
Right.
And one of them is what she calls the intrapreneur. It's the person who works at a company. You know, you are for your whole life an employee, working a job or jobs, but you have this entrepreneurial or intrapreneurial thinking that you bring to your role every day. And because of that, you are a much more valuable employee because you can think like an owner and you can bring that sort of thinking to the work that you do.
Do you think it's important to call out that, because I really struggle with this with our audience, we've got a lot of employees, and I think there's a natural skew. Like if you're listening to a money podcast, you are probably dialed in somewhat.
Right.
But if you've just stumbled over this podcast, you have to make the decision out loud. If you like your 9 to 5, going to work, going home, and you're happy with that, like own it.
Right.
But don't whinge if down the track, oh, I don't have this or I can't do that, where you've made a conscious decision just to be on autopilot.
Right.
So I think there's a level of ownership about what do you want from your life? Because I've legitimately got friends who they go to work, they go home, they don't want anything else. But I don't know, it's just we have to work out what we want and resolve that, because we wake up in the bed we make for ourselves. And usually we wake up in 20, 30 years' time, right? I don't know. It's interesting. And I will say one thing. I don't know too much in the US, but in Australia, you could be a school teacher or a nurse or a government employee, and because we're going to talk about negotiations in terms of pay rises, right? I like to, and I don't know what you tell your audience, like if you are at a set salary, well, it's a career discussion, not a job discussion.
Right.
Because if someone's a school teacher, you can't go to the principal and say, I want extra money, because the state may set the wage. So then it's not a job discussion, it's a career discussion. Now, I've put a whole heap of stuff on the table. As I like to say, you can pick at that like a dead carcass, anything. You can disagree with me. You can do what you want.
One of the things that we tell, we get questions oftentimes from people who are in, this is typically in the US at least, it's government jobs.
Yes.
Where there are fixed salary tiers, and so your tier, let's say you're in the military, right? If you're at a certain military rank, you get a certain compensation. If you're at a different military rank, you get a different compensation. And that tier is for the most part fixed.
Yes.
Right? And so we get questions from our audience saying, in that type of a circumstance, what can I do? Well, first of all, it's absolutely true that in that sort of a circumstance, you have far less wiggle room than somebody who is interviewing at a private sector job where,
there is discretion.
Yeah, exactly. In the private sector, there's a whole lot of additional discretion. There's a whole lot, bigger, wider ranges and therefore bigger variability. That being said, in the context of a job in which you have very fixed salary tiers, there are still relationships that you form with your direct supervisors who will often try to give you some level of support to the degree at which they're able to do so. So, for example, maybe they can't officially give you a relocation allowance, but they can, if you have to relocate for your work, maybe if they can't officially give you a relocation allowance, they can formally start your first day of work on a Monday, but then not require you to come in until Friday, so that you have those 4 days, Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday, to move to your new place, right? And so unofficially, that gives you functionally 4 days of pay and 4 days of 4 days of pay that you could spend dealing with the move that you're making, right? That can be a way that if they don't have the overt discretion to give you a relocation allowance, they could still give you sort of that indirect support.
Yeah.
Similarly, the resources that you get within your job, professional development, for example. So you use school teachers as an example. Let's say that the structure is that, a teacher at this level only can make this amount of money. Well, what kind of supplies can you get for your classroom? Or how many field trips can you get authorized? Or how many guest speakers, can you bring in? And like, what are the... Or what kind of conferences are they willing to send you to?
Yeah.
Or professional development, trainings, like on-the-job trainings and resources.
Yeah, so you get those soft benefits to potentially upskill and then pivot into something else.
Exactly.
So when it comes to negotiation, can you just because I want to ask you some practical questions. So you're running a course on negotiations.
Yes. So I've just started a course on negotiation. It's called Your Next Raise.
Yep.
And the overt topic, of course, is about how to get a raise, but really these skills are transferable and apply to anything from how to negotiate for a car, how to negotiate when you're buying a home, how to negotiate when you're buying a used couch, on the internet.
Yeah.
Right? So in all of these ways, both big and small, we negotiate every day.
Yeah.
And the structure of the course that we teach, Your Next Raise, is that we start with single person, single issue. All right, so you and me, and we are. I would like that cup of coffee that you've got.
Yeah.
And I say, hey, can I have that coffee? And you're like, I'll sell you that. You can't have it. I'll sell you that coffee. But you're not a coffee retailer. We're just two people, and I want to purchase something. I want that watch that you're wearing right now,
Yeah.
And you and I are about to negotiate on that watch that I want to buy off of your wrist right now. Right. So that's an example of single person, single issue. Now, you can also have single person, multi-issue. So let's say you and me, but this time I want to buy your sofa. Well, there are a whole bunch of additional issues beyond just the price of the sofa, are you going to deliver it or do I have to come pick it up? Is there going to be any kind of a warranty? Let's say I'm sitting on the sofa for a week, and after a week, I feel like it's springy or I find some bed bugs in it.
Yeah.
Is there a return period? So there are, it's still single person, but now there's multi-issues. And now there's the opportunity for give and take.
Yeah.
Right? There's the price, but there's also the delivery and there's also the return policy. And, you can kind of like give and take on some in order to adjust for the others. Then you have multi-person. And before we move on, I should say negotiating for your salary at work is multi-issue because you're talking not just about your salary, but your benefits, your retirement package, your vacation time, your days off, your sick days. Do you work from home or do you work in office or is it hybrid? Do you have parking? Do you have, what are your parental leave policies? I mean, there are so many issues that go into broader compensation.
Well, we'll take a break, and when we get back, I'm going to hit Paula up with some practical tools and, dare I say, some negotiation role play. We'll be back right after this.
If you're after personal financial advice, don't get it from a podcast. But if you want guidance tailored to your situation, head to moneypodcast.com.au and click Get Help. We'll connect you with one of our trusted professionals, financial advisors and mortgage brokers, who work with people right across Australia. No matter where you are, they can help. Now, before we get back to the show, a quick reminder to protect your financial life. That means having income protection sorted. It means having death cover if there's any debt or dependents relying on you. It means getting your personal insurance in order. Most people insure their car, they insure their house, but what about themselves? Sky Wealth, who support this podcast, are specialist financial advisors who can help you get the right cover in place. Their advice is often more comprehensive and better value than going direct through your super. Book a complimentary 15-minute chat at sky.com.au. That's skye.com.au, and they'll point you in the right direction.
Okay, we're back. How do you prepare for a negotiation when there is limited information on the other side of the fence?
Oh, this is one of my favorite elements of this topic. Okay, so what you're talking about is, first of all, asymmetric information. So I'm throwing that term out there for everybody. Asymmetric information. In any negotiation, there is always going to be asymmetric information because you know things if you are the job hiring manager, you know things that I, as the job candidate, do not know. If you are selling me your watch, you know things about that watch that I, as the buyer, do not know, right? But it's bi-directional. So I, as the person who's buying your watch, I know what my budget is, which may or may not be the budget that I tell you.
Yeah.
I know what other offers I have, which I may or may not disclose. Same thing, hiring manager and job candidate, right? If you're the hiring manager, you know how many other candidates are in the queue, like how many other candidates are competing for that role and how good they are and what they're asking for, right? You've been through the interview process and you've narrowed it down to 2 or 3 or 4 people.
Yeah.
And you know who's the favorite and if they're a runaway favorite or not. Like, you as the hiring manager know that. As the job candidate, I don't know that information, but as the job candidate, I know how many other offers I have. And so what we're talking about here is, in terms of that specific example of asymmetric information, we're talking about this concept called BATNA. And so BATNA is an acronym, BATNA. It's an acronym for Best Alternative to a Negotiated Agreement.
Right.
Which is just kind of a fancy way of saying, what's my plan B?
Yes.
If this doesn't work out, what else would I do? And so, in any negotiation, each party has a BATNA. And your job as the person on the other side of that table is to try to figure out what the other party's BATNA is to the best of your ability to do so, right? That comes with asking probing questions. It comes from, depending on what type of negotiation it is, any kind of broader hints that you might be able to pick up. If you're buying a home, for example, it might come from taking a educated guess based on some other macroeconomic forces. But your job is to try to figure out what's the other party's BATNA. Your job is also to figure out two other things. It's called the reservation point and the aspiration point. So your reservation point is basically the lowest that you're willing to go. Let's say that I am the job candidate and you are the hiring manager. Your reservation point as the hiring manager is this is the absolute most that we're willing to offer.
So in the background, the role, it could be 100K Australian advertised for, or we see a lot of bands like 80 to 100K or whatever.
Yeah, 80 to 100K.
You're applying, you know that that's their band. For this example, would you assume that because I've advertised 80 to 100, I probably could do 110 for the right person?
I wouldn't necessarily assume that.
Right.
It would depend. But let me just to explain the concept of the reservation and aspiration points. Let's say you're advertising a job. The band is between 80K to 100K. That's the stated band.
Yeah.
Now, you as the hiring manager, your kind of the top end that you're willing to go is maybe 105. But then also remember, when it comes to all of those other soft, quote unquote, soft things, right? You're willing to offer 5 weeks holiday instead of the standard 4 weeks that you've advertised. You're willing to offer, I don't know how you do health insurance there. I'm sure it's better.
It's not part of the package.
Okay, yeah. I'm jealous. Very jealous. I envy the fact that you won't end up in bankruptcy if you break your leg.
Yeah. Yeah, it's crazy.
Okay, so we'll leave health insurance to the side.
Maybe we'll do a hybrid. There's a chance you could get hybrid working.
Right, hybrid working.
3 days from home.
Exactly.
Maybe, or
3 days from home. You get if you get a pass for the public transportation system, like
or a gym membership.
A gym membership, exactly. You get all of those kinds of benefits. So the hiring manager knows what the maximum that they're willing to offer is in all of those categories.
Yeah.
The hiring manager also knows their aspiration point, which is, what am I going for? What would the hiring manager's best case outcome be?
Yes.
Because maybe the hiring manager is incentivized to
have a lower
yeah, right? And maybe who knows? Maybe the hiring manager gets a bonus, gets a little cut of a negotiation that ends up being lower, right? So the hiring manager, that range that the hiring manager is able to offer, that's the range between their aspiration point, which is what they would want in the best case scenario,
yes,
and the reservation point, which is what they would accept in a worst case scenario. That range between their best case and their worst case, that is what it's called, the zone of possible agreements.
Yes.
Otherwise known as the ZOPA, Z-O-P-A, the zone of possible agreements, right? And then same thing. So on the other side, the job candidate, they've got a best case and a worst case for what the job candidate wants and is willing to accept. So the job candidate also has their ZOPA, their zone of possible agreements, right? So the things that you're trying to figure out for each party is, what is your batna? What is your plan B? What is your best alternative? And then what is their ZOPA?
Yes.
Right? What is that range?
So as the candidate, it's 80 to 100 advertised. I want 92. I can't take this job under 85, for example.
Right. So if 85 is your hard cutoff, then as the job candidate, your reservation point would be 85.
Yes.
Right.
So how do we talk to people to extract, because when we talk about negotiations, I always tell people, next time you're at a car yard trying to buy a used car, in used car school, they will never tell the car salesperson to mention the price first.
Right.
You just will you not get a car salesperson to put an offer first at all.
Right.
Do you say, look, because for me, negotiation, I learned a couple of things. I only do win-wins. What's a win-win? Or enough meat left on the bone.
Right.
So the other person feels like they got a win-win.
Right.
So if you're the candidate and I've got this 80 to 100 range, what would you be asking me, assuming that everything's going good?
So the first thing that I would start with is, I would want to know more about the position. Why is it that is this a new position, or has this position always existed and a previous person left it?
Yeah.
What is it? Where is it that your company is going in the next year, in the next 3 years, in the next 5 years? What are your company's visions and goals for how you want to grow and where you want to go? How does this position play a role in it? What would excellence inside of this position look like? So I would first want to know as much as possible about the specifics of this role and what excellence, what success within this role would look like. After that, I would start by talking not about the salary, but about those, high remote versus in office. Are you in person versus are you in office? How much vacation time you're taking? All of those kinds of factors beyond salary, because what you hear about where this company wants to go in the next 5 years will inform that.
Right.
So let's say, for example, that we'll take two different companies. Company number one is like, look, we've existed for 150 years. We have a long history, and we have a very conservative approach to growth. We pride ourselves on our longevity, and most of our employees, the average tenure of an employee is 17 years. So most people who come and stay at this company, they
come and die here.
Yeah, exactly. They're here for life. So if I were to hear that from a hiring manager, then I would know that certain things like having a professional development budget,
Probably off the table.
Yeah, probably off the table, because it doesn't look like they're going to be very aggressive about growth.
Yeah.
Right? Whereas other things like having a really good vacation holiday policy, I would be gunning more for that, because if I'm going to be there for the next 17 years, I need to make that sustainable.
Yeah.
And knowing if this is really truly going to be a long-term thing, then we're going to have to build in adequate vacation time such that I don't get antsy and quit when I decide that I want to go travel across Europe. I would start to make those asks in a way that they're aligned with what the direction that the company is headed in.
So a lot of people, there might be a second round interview. Like first interview, you wouldn't even talk salary at all?
No, not at all.
So
not until they make an offer.
Yeah, okay. So would you be as blatant to say at the second interview, hey, you've advertised, but this is the thing where it's a muscle that we have to work on to be confident.
Yes.
And you just need to practice with a friend.
So in the course that we offer, one of the most valuable components of the course is that every Tuesday we bring our students together and we give them a sample, like a sample scenario, and then our students practice with one another.
Yeah, awesome.
So every Tuesday, people are playing the role of job candidate or the role of hiring manager.
And would you say, look, you've advertised 80 to 100,000.
Yeah.
What does the candidate look like to get towards the top of that scale?
I wouldn't ask it like that.
Yeah, so how would you start to tease it out? Or do you just say, thanks for the day and, wait until they make an offer?
Oh, well, definitely wait until they make an offer.
Okay, cool.
If they haven't made an offer, then it's premature to have that conversation.
Right, okay. So you're saying for most people, most of the time, they go, yes, Glenn, we'll give you the job. We want to propose $90,000. And in your mind, you're like, well, you said 80 to 100. The offer is not the final point.
Right.
Is that what you're saying?
Right.
Yeah.
They're off. That's just an opening offer.
Right.
I mean, think about
okay, so now the negotiation can start.
Yeah, the
because
negotiation
there's real data on the table.
Exactly. The negotiation begins. But first, they have to decide that they want you to work for them. Right? If they haven't yet decided that they want you to work for them, then it's premature to have the conversation. Think of it kind of like when you're buying a home, right? When you're buying a home, there's that stage in which as a buyer, you're obtaining information about the home. How old is the roof? How old is the water heater? So that's just the data gathering stage. And then the negotiation doesn't start formally until the buyer makes an offer.
Right. Okay. So I've received a 90K offer.
Yes.
Would love you to join the team. Here's $90,000. at that point, how can we see if there is scope to increase the hard dollars?
Right. So that at that point, you're searching for the zopa. So the first thing I
Yes.
would do, I wouldn't approach salary until the end.
Yes.
I would negotiate all of those other ancillary benefits first. The working from home, the professional development. I would
Because
negotiate.
getting a new job at the start of a new job in the private sector,
Yeah.
it's the most leverage you'll probably ever have,
Yeah.
potentially,
Yeah.
unless you're moving up or internal.
Exactly. So I would be negotiating all of those, is there a relocation allowance? Is there a conference professional development budget? Like I would be negotiating all of those finer points
Yep.
first and foremost. And by virtue of doing so, then when you get to the salary negotiation piece, if you've already locked in those finer points and made agreements on those finer points, if needed to, you could then, if you're really pressing for a higher salary, you could renegotiate some of those previous points.
Yeah. So,
right?
let's take the gym membership off the table or something like that. Yeah.
Exactly. Okay, well, you know what? If you give me a pass for free public transportation, then I will come into the office 4 days a week instead of instead of
Yeah.
2 days a week.
So, and then are there any types of words that you could say?
So this goes back to your earlier question. I would not ask. If the range is 80 to 100,000,
Yeah.
I would not ask, what do I need to do to get to the top of that range?
Yep.
Because that's about you.
Yes.
Don't make it about you. Make it about them.
Yeah.
Right? And to make it about them, it's what would a person in this role need to do in order for you to think, wow, this is the best possible, we made a great decision. This is the best possible hire that we ever could have made. This is better than we expected. This is precisely the type of person that we wanted to fill this role in the scope of this bigger team, right? So make it not about you, but about them and what they want and what excellence looks like. And when they tell you, here's what excellence looks like, then your job is to sell yourself on how you can meet that definition of excellence. Because once you have sold yourself on how you meet that definition of excellence, then of course you deserve the top of the range.
Yeah. It's funny for the business owners out there. Number one, listen to our podcast, This Is Business. But number two, I do a lot of B2B negotiations for my podcasts and all that stuff, and you would as well. I learned the hard way that, you'd seal a deal, then halfway through the contract agreement, they're not happy.
Right.
Because it's not delivering. And then I was like, hang on, this comes back to me for not setting expectations clear.
Right.
So I always ask, in a business sense, at the very start when someone wants to advertise on our show, what does success look like to you and what do you want to achieve? Like, number one. And there are so many brands that I turn away because we want signups. And I'm like, well, podcasts, they're not for you.
Right.
I'm a billboard on the side of the road.
Right.
Go and spend $1,000 on Facebook and you'll get $1,500 worth of, I'm not a click business.
Right.
So I think it's really identifying what success looks like. So then you can build your package around their success.
Right. Exactly. Yeah, that's a perfect example. Podcasts are great for brand awareness.
Yes.
But they, user behavior, it does not point to clicks, right? Because people, when you're listening to a podcast, what are you doing? You're driving a car, you're washing the dishes, you're taking out the trash, you're walking the dog.
Yeah.
Yeah,
if you want clicks, I'll sell you a newsletter spot.
Right.
Where people can click. But so, yeah, this is fascinating. So when this negotiation's coming, it's happening, and I don't know, because I get the daunting nature of negotiations where people might only change jobs every 5 years, 3 years, whatever the data is. How do we practice with what if there's an awkward silence in a negotiation?
Oh, I love it. Sit in that silence.
Right.
Sit in that silence.
Don't even blink.
Yes. State your number and then shut up. And that is something, that's where practice becomes so critical. In fact, that's actually an exercise that we do with our students because it's so awkward if you've never practiced it before. And I'll challenge everyone listening to this to practice right now. In fact, here, I'll ask you to do it.
Okay.
So I
make an offer for my watch.
Okay.
Or is that the silence?
Well, so your job, okay, all right. I would like to offer you $100, $101.
Yeah.
I'm going to offer you $101 for that watch.
Okay. So this is interesting because it's, I don't know, like, so the immediately, and I don't know, it's probably not a real thing because if you knew watches, you wouldn't offer $100 for this.
So let me pause here. I literally do not know if what you mean by that is that watch is worth so much more or that watch is worth so much less.
Exactly.
So that statement that you just made, I literally don't know if what you're telling me is, oh, if you knew watches, you would know that this is $1,000 watch.
Yeah.
And therefore that offer is too low. Maybe you mean that. Maybe you mean, oh, if you knew watches, you would know that this is a $10 watch.
Yeah.
I don't know.
Yeah. Paula, I'm not sure if this is your watch today.
Tell me about that watch. How long have you owned it?
I think I purchased it in 2016. So it's coming up 10 years.
Wow, you've owned it for a long time. You bought it. It wasn't given to you.
No, I purchased it. Yeah.
Is that your only watch?
No.
How often do you wear it?
Oh, it varies. Maybe a couple times a week.
Oh, interesting.
Yeah.
What makes you decide that this is a day I'm going to wear that particular watch rather than a different one?
I don't actually know. Before I leave my house, on the kitchen bench.
Yeah?
It's just so dumb. I live by myself, so it actually doesn't matter. I have my 3 watches out on the bench. And when I'm leaving the house, I'm like, yeah, I feel like that one. Or I feel like that one.
Oh, interesting.
Yeah.
So you have 3 watches.
Yeah.
That means you must have put a lot of thought into the 3 watches that you own. So, you're not a collector that has a dozen watches.
No.
You're someone who really curates your watch selection. And you've decided that of all the watches in the world, you're going to only own 3. And this is going to be one of those 3.
Yeah.
That tells me that this watch, it must be special. And given that you bought it, it wasn't passed down to you from a grandfather. It's not special in the family heirloom sense. It's special in the sense that you really sought it out. Have you ever had the band replaced?
I have, yes.
Yeah, so this is a watch that is worth replacing the band for.
Yeah. I've often said that it will be buried with me.
Wow. Well, okay, well,
it's my Mona Lisa, all right?
In that case, I might make an offer for one of the other 2 watches.
Yeah. So you there was silence, and then you started asking
a lot of
questions.
I want to understand your relationship with that watch.
Yeah. And well, I always wanted one of these, and I think I hit a milestone in one of my businesses, and I'm like, I'm going to get a nice watch. And yeah, I don't know. So if I'm sorry, Paula, it's not for sale. Like, where do you go there?
I mean, if you want it to be buried with you, I believe that is genuinely not for sale.
Yeah, yeah.
There are, in that case, if you actually do want it to be buried with you, that, the it's not for sale isn't a bluff. I actually believe that is genuinely not for sale.
You've actually, because you can call bluff, can't you?
Yeah, yeah.
So you didn't call my bluff.
Yeah,
realistically.
If you want this to be buried with you, then my belief is that Because you don't want the other 2 watches to be buried with you. You didn't say,
No.
I want to be buried wearing 3 watches.
No.
Of the 3 watches that you own, you want that one to be buried with you. That means if I want to purchase a watch, I'm purchasing one of your other 2 watches. I'm not buying that one.
Yeah.
Because that one, I think, truly is not for sale.
So if I had it, so in finishing, because we are running out of time rapidly, if I put this online for sale and I put it up on Marketplace and I put it up for $1,000, for example.
Yeah.
You know, you will get the people that go, oh, I'll give you $100, which is nowhere near the ballpark.
Right.
How do you, in negotiation, want to get this for us? I've listed it for 1,000. How do you get the best price possible?
I would get them on the phone if possible.
Right.
You know, the shortfall with online
Could
messaging.
I call and ask some questions?
Exactly.
Right.
The shortfall with online messaging is that you do get those lowball spray and pray
Yes.
people, you know, the ones who really try to lowball you. And those people are not worth your time.
Yep.
Because they're not making serious offers. They're operating on volume.
Yeah.
So don't waste your time with them. Instead, any person that you're serious, if it's a serious sale, you want to be on the phone with them.
Yep.
You want to be having a conversation with them, right? You want to get to know them and their story,
Yeah.
right? And that goes, let's say, why is it that they want to buy a watch? Why now?
Yeah.
Why now? You're an adult. Why is it as an adult? Have you never owned a watch before? Is this your first?
So
Yeah.
you as the buyer have asked me, hey, could we jump on the phone to chat about the watch
or
for
as
sale?
the seller. Maybe you're the
so
seller.
I think I want to determine,
Yeah.
are you trying to buy the watch from me or am I trying to sell it to you?
Yeah.
Do we need to know our roles in a
Right.
negotiation?
Yeah, well, and you're doing both. I mean, so if you're the seller of that watch,
Yeah.
right? Then your job, if when you get on that phone, is to sell the other person on the watch.
Yeah.
But to sell the other person on the value of the watch.
Yeah.
And you do that by first understanding what is their motivation. Why
Yeah.
do they want to watch?
Yeah, why this particular watch,
Yeah.
Paula?
Why do they want to watch? Why that particular watch? Why now? I
Yeah.
think now is a question people don't often ask. So, you know, you could have purchased a watch 6 months ago, or you could have waited for an additional 6 months. What is it about this moment in time that made you decide that this is the time that you want to watch?
Yeah.
You know? And so, yeah, why now?
So in this, when do you lob an offer in for the price?
If it's an online sale like what you've just
Yep.
described, the seller will make a posting, and typically a posting will have a price or will have a range.
Yes.
The buyer will respond, and if you want to test the buyer to make sure that the buyer is not going to be one of those lowball
Yes.
people, because if they're a lowball person, don't bother. Just
Yeah.
ignore them, you know? But if the buyer, if you, let's say, list that watch for 1,000,
Yeah.
and the buyer says, I'll offer you 900, okay, that's a serious enough offer that it's worth having that conversation.
Come get the watch.
You know? And then, it's worth having that conversation, right? But if as the seller, you still want that 1,000, then it's worth having that phone call to sell the buyer on the notion that this watch is actually worth quite a bit more than 1,000. I priced it at 1,000 because I wanted to price it fairly, but here's why it's worth so much more. And here's why that's a great deal. And given that it's such a great deal, I can't discount it any further.
Yeah, and I think we need to get to the point with all our negotiations, I think anyway, the minute desperation enters the chat, you're doomed for failure.
And what you're talking about there is batna. So when
Right.
desperation enters the chat, it's because you don't have a very good batna.
Yes.
Best alternative.
Yes.
Right?
Yeah. All right. In finishing, if I'm a 5-year-old and I want to grow up to be a negotiator, what key things are you telling me
Yeah.
to fuse burn into my brain to remember when negotiating.
Oh, so remember that you negotiate. We all negotiate every single day.
Yeah.
Throughout the day in ways that are both big and small. You and I, right before we recorded, had a negotiation around what time should the recording begin.
Yeah.
Right? It was a small negotiation, but that itself is a negotiation. And I said, "Oh, hey, I'm dealing with this and this and this and this." You know, well, and then you said, "Okay, that's okay. I've got some flexibility in this domain."
Yeah.
Right. And we had right before the recording began a little miniature negotiation right then and there about what time this recording would begin. That's a negotiation, and so start to tune into those because we negotiate every day, all the time. When you walk through, let's say you're in an elevator, or do you call it a lift?
A lift.
A lift.
Yes.
You're in a lift. You're in a lift with someone, and the lift doors open, and you and that other person look at each other, and through eye contact, figure out who's going to exit first.
Yeah.
That, with no words being spoken, with purely eye contact, that is a miniature negotiation right then and there.
Okay, so I want people to be aware over the next 24 hours after listening to this, spot micro negotiations.
Spot the micro negotiations.
Yeah, okay. Interesting. Any other tips for negotiating well?
Before you go into any negotiation, think about and maybe write down, and don't show it to anybody, but just for yourself, write down your batna, your reservation point, and your aspiration point. So that way you know what what your zopa is, and you know what your batna is.
For the dummies like me, batna, best alternative
to a negotiated agreement, which is another way of saying your plan B.
Yeah.
What's your plan B? What's your plan
What's
C?
your stop? What's your final?
No. What your stop, your final, that's your reservation point.
Right. Yes.
Right.
Yes. So your
batna is your alternative.
yes. Right.
So for me, if I don't buy your watch, I've got a couple of batnas. My batna could be.
Yeah, but if you didn't have a batna, you get desperate and dumb and overpay.
You could,
Right.
which is why you need to outline for yourself what your batna or batnas are.
Right. Okay.
The batna would be the best, but then
Yes.
you've got kind of matna, your mid,
Yeah.
you're a mid-tier alternatives.
Yeah. Okay. I think it's just being conscious, isn't it?
Right.
And that's probably like if you are new to negotiating or you've got a job interview coming up, just be present with best case, worst case, what you will want, your batna, your zopa. And what we'll do, everyone, in the show notes, we'll write this out so
Perfect.
we can see them because there's a lot of things. But it's just, I think it is being present. Everything's a negotiation. And I don't know, for me, do you have like a mantra when you negotiate?
No,
or a vibe?
No, I don't have a mantra, but I do always go in knowing what my batna is.
Yes.
My batna and then my matna, my mid-tier.
Yeah.
So what's the plan B?
Yeah.
What's plan C, plan D, plan E, plan F? Because if you have that, if you know that, and you have a very firm sense of that, then that desperation does not enter the picture.
Yeah. So for me, my hard thing is I won't do a deal with somebody if they end up getting screwed by me. Well, I just don't want to screw people.
Right. Good. Good.
But other people don't care about that. But what is important to you in a negotiation? But anyway, I could talk about negotiation for days. How can people connect with you? Where's the best place that they can follow you and learn more about this stuff?
Well, so I've got a podcast called Afford Anything. Open up your favorite podcast player. Just search for Afford Anything. When you find it, please hit the follow button.
Yes.
So that way you will get updates about all of our amazing upcoming episodes. We also have, if you go to affordanything.com/yournextraise.
Your next raise.
Yeah, that's affordanything.com/yournextraise. You can find out more about the teachings that we have on negotiation and the practice that you can do.
Yeah, love it.
You can live practice with me and with the other people inside of our community every Tuesday.
Awesome. Well, thank you so much, Paula Pant, for joining us today. Friends, you've been joined by podcast royalty here in Portland, Oregon. Thank you so much, Paula. We'll see you next time.
Of course. Thank you for inviting me on.
My pleasure. Bye.
Any advice is general financial advice only. which does not take into account your objectives, financial situation, or needs. Because of that, you should consider if the advice is appropriate to you and your needs before acting on the information. If you do choose to buy a financial product, read the Product Disclosure Statement, PDS, and Target Market Determination, TMD, and obtain appropriate financial advice tailored to your needs. Simo Interactive Pty Ltd, the publisher of this podcast, and Glen James are authorised representatives of Money Sherpa Pty Ltd, which holds financial services license 451289. Opinions or comments from any guests on the podcast are theirs and not those of the host or the publisher or their respective license holders.